Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shishikoda Nitai Maya Purushashi Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Krishna 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 So reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 6, Uniting Two Worlds. This chapter is entitled, I have done my part of thinking. It's in 1977, June. As June came in Vrindavan, the weather remained very hot. We read yesterday it was 45 degrees. The sky, which had been a clear blue, turned hazy as the first moisture arrived. Between noon and 4 p.m., the ground was too hot for bare feet, and the residents of Vrindavan would stay home, confining most of their activity to either the morning or the late afternoon and evening. Even eating was excluded from the midday, since the heat killed the appetite. The Yamuna was shallow and hot, giving little relief. The cows were gaunt from lack of grass and feed, and occasional hot, searing winds raised dust clouds. Flies and mosquitoes died in the air. One of the few pleasant features of summer was the fragrance of bellflowers that climbed along the walls around Prabhupada's garden, somehow thriving in the dry heat. In the first days of June, Srila Prabhupada experienced some hope of recovery. He asked to resume his morning rites, and when being brought down to the car, he said, "Soon I will get down and walk myself." His old friend from Allahabad, Mr. Ghosh, came and diagnosed his disease as anxiety for the devotees and the Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada agreed, but he didn't follow the doctor's orders since they included having his blood pressure checked regularly and taking various medicines and special treatments. But by receiving massages from his servants, he felt he was improving. At this rate, he said, he would be all right after a month and a half. But he stressed, "I am not leaving Vrindavan until I am well." One morning, Srila Prabhupada asked to go to see the deities, and his men promptly moved him in his rocking chair before Krishna Balaram. Sitting in his chair beneath a Tamil tree, Prabhupada looked up at the Transcendental Brothers, while many tears glided down his cheeks. "They are dressed very nicely," he said, while he basked in the presence of Krishna Balaram. He enjoyed the soothing shade of the Tamil tree. "The contractor wanted this tree cut down," he said, "but I would not allow. There are not many Tamil trees left. These worldly men do not know." Srila Prabhupada started coming down regularly each morning to see the deities, an event that gradually grew to become a daily temple function involving ISKCON devotees and guests alike. Prabhupada would sit in his rocking chair under the Tamil tree, and a devotee would lead kirtan, while Prabhupada and all the other devotees chanted responsively. For Prabhupada's disciples, chanting with him in the courtyard of his temple in Ramanreti, Vrindavan, was the essence of the spiritual world. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Grantharaj, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14, text number 46. This is the last verse in this chapter. Maybe some devotees will feel relief that we're feeling the forest of enjoyment. It's quite a heavy chapter. Doesn't leave for us any hope for having any happiness in this material world. So I'll do this myself, the Sanskrit. Ya idam bhagavata sabhajita vadata guna karmano rajarshir bharatasyanucharitam swasti ayanam ayushyam danyam yashasyam swargya pavargyam vanushrinoti akyatyati abhinandati cha sarva eva shisha atmana ashastena Kanchana Parata iti. We'll do responsibly. Yaha, anyone who, idam, this, Bhagavata, by exalted devotees, Sabhajita, greatly worshipped, Avadata, pure, Guna, whose qualities, Karmanaha, and activities, Rajarishe of the great saintly king, Bharatasya of Bharat Maharaj, Anucharitam, the narration, Swasti Ayanam, the abode of auspiciousness, Ayushyam, which increases one's duration of life, Danyam, increases one's fortune, Yashasyam, bestows reputation, Swargya, gives promotion to the higher planetary systems, the goal of the karmis. Apavargyam, gives liberation from this material world and enables one to merge into the Supreme, the goal of the Gyanis. Va, or Anushrinoti, always hears following the path of devotional service. Akiyasyati, describes for the benefit of others. Abhinandati, glorifies the characteristics of devotees and the Supreme Lord. Cha, and Sarvaha, all. Eva, certainly. Ashishaha, blessings. Atmanaha, for himself. Ashaste, he achieves. Na, not. Kanchana, anything. Parataha, from anyone else. Iti, thus. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Devotees interested in hearing and chanting Shravanam Kirtanam regularly discuss the pure characteristics of Bharat Maharaj and praise his activities. If one submissively hears and chants about the all-auspicious Maharaj Bharat, one's lifespan and material opulences certainly increase. One can become very famous and easily attain promotion to the heavenly planets, or attain liberation by merging into the existence of the Lord. Whatever one desires can be attained simply by hearing, chanting, and glorifying the activities of Maharaj Bharat. In this way, one can fulfill all his material and spiritual desires. One does not have to ask anyone else for these things, for simply by studying the life of Maharaj Bharat, one can attain all desirable things. Purport. The forest of material existence is summarized in this 14th chapter. The word Bhava Tavi refers to the path of material existence. The merchant is the living entity who comes to the forest of material existence to try to make money for sense gratification. The six plunderers are the senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch, and mind. The bad leader is diverted intelligence. Intelligence is meant for Krishna consciousness, but due to material existence, we divert all our intelligence to achieve material facilities. Everything belongs to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But due to our perverted mind and senses, we plunder the property of the Lord and engage in satisfying our senses. The jackals and tigers in the forest are our family members, and the herbs and creepers are our material desires. The mountain cave is our happy home, and the mosquitoes and serpents are our enemies. The rats, beasts, and vultures are different types of thieves who take away our possessions. And the Gandharvapura is the phantasmagoria of the body and home. The will-o'-the-wisp is our attraction for gold and its color, and material residence and wealth are the ingredients for our material enjoyment. The whirlwind is our attraction for our wife, and the dust storm is our blinding passion experienced during sex. The demigods control the different directions, and the cricket is the harsh words spoken by our enemy during our absence. The owl is the person who directly insults us, and the impious trees are impious men. The waterless river represents atheists who give us trouble in this world and the next. The meat-eating demons are the government officials, and the pricking thorns are the impediments of material life. The little taste experienced in sex is our desire to enjoy another's wife, and the flies are the guardians of women, like the husband, father-in-law, mother-in-law, and so forth. The creeper itself is woman in general. The lion is the wheel of time, and the herons, crows, and vultures are so-called demigods, pseudo-swamis, yogis, and incarnations. All of these are too insignificant to give one relief. The swans are the perfect brahmanas, and the monkeys are the extravagant shudras engaged in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The trees of the monkeys are our households, and the elephant is the ultimate death. Thus, all the constituents of material existence are described in this chapter. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Material World as the Great Forest of Enjoyment. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachalam Angum langayate girim Yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. By the mercy of spiritual master, a blind man can see the stars, lame man can cross the mountains, and dumb man can speak eloquently. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishna Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachavani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vashyatya Deshatayani. So the translation again. Devotees interested in hearing and chanting Shravanam Kirtanam regularly discuss the pure characteristics of Bharat Maharaj and praise his activities. If one submissively hears and chants about the all-auspicious Maharaj Bharat, one's lifespan and material opulences certainly increase. One can become very famous and easily attain promotion to the heavenly planets or attain liberation by merging into the existence of the Lord. Whatever one desires can be attained simply by hearing, chanting, and glorifying the activities of Maharaj Bharat. In this way, one can fulfill all his material and spiritual desires. One does not have to ask anyone else for these things, for simply by studying the life of Maharaj Bharat, one can attain all desirable things. This is called false shruti. It's a benediction, often in a Vedic literature after presentation of a certain subject matter for hearing and chanting. There is benediction that comes by reciting and hearing it. So Srimad Bhagavatam, there's many chapters that ends with this final verse that bestows benediction. And of course, Bhagavatam is considered Amala Purana. Has no material um, there is no material goal. There is the whole cheating religion is completely dispelled and removed from Bhagavatam, and it's also only pure devotional service is described. At the same time, this pure devotion is something that people do not aspire because they're so much caught up with actually a number of those different benedictions that mention here, increasing one's duration of life. It's like a big thing. It's like a multi-billion industry. How to extend your life, how to look better for a little longer, extend, your years, medicine industry, all those things just somehow or another increase the duration of life or keep you looking a little younger. It's a massive thing and effort. Reputation is another thing that people hanger like anything. How many likes on Facebook. Yesterday was 5, today is 10, tomorrow maybe it'll be 20. Reputation is a big thing in the competition. Oh, I didn't get so many likes today and feel depressed. And so it's a big thing. People are really competing for reputation. Svargya, promotion to higher planetary systems. Of course, that understanding is not so much there in the modern day, but we may want a promotion to the higher systems in our village. The village has got some lower parts and some higher parts, more deprived areas and more where those middle class live or upper class. So you want some promotion towards that middle class area of the village or the upper class area in the outskirts of the village. Or some villages are just for the higher class and they don't want any lower class people. And as soon as lower class moves in, they're thinking, this is polluting our village. It's such a material conception of life. It's such a sad situation. This prestige is keeping us, from this a little higher part of the town. I'm from the northern side of Glasgow. The northern side is the best. From the west end or from the east end. Oh, I heard various stories about that side. How you can live there? Can't afford it. So this status quo is such a big thing. Reputation. These are the things that keep us in this material world. Promotion to higher planetary systems or promotion to the higher countries. I'm from the Eastern Europe. You are from the Western Europe. I am from the United States. I'm from Hawaii. And where are you from? This status is such a big thing in the material world, and this higher and lower systems of living, World War countries. Now everything is turning around as well. The pendulum is swinging by the law of karma. The so-called Western countries, or the developed countries, are becoming undeveloped, sometimes not so much financially, but like the way how they behave is quite uncivilized. It's supposed to be a developed country. Even you see, how people act towards each other, leadership, how they act, feels like it's like jungle, wild jungle. Then the third world countries are becoming, more financially stronger, and they start to lead the world. Like the Asia is on the rise. So this law of karma is swinging from one thing to another. Nobody can maintain their status quo and reputation for a long time. Empires come and go, so you cannot attain a permanent happiness in this. And then, some people get really fed up with all this, become frustrated, and disgusted from seeing all this futility of material existence, all this prestige and extending your life as long as you can and all that kind of thing. They just become totally disgusted, and then they go to the field of spirituality and want to commit a spiritual suicide by merging into Brahman, committing a spiritual suicide, which is the goal of Gyanis. So all those things are there, and people have those different kind of aspirations, still considered a material desire, to extinguish your existence, to finish your miseries, is still considered a material desire, even it uses a spiritual means to attain it. And if even after that people come back, becoming fed up, with this non-existence, the desire awakens in the heart. It's Krishna's mercy, of course, that he knows that the heart of living entity is this eternal loving service to the Lord. So even if they desire to merge, it still leaves the potential for the desire to awaken. Is not completely that it gets completely merged. Out of compassion again and mercy of Krishna, the potential for desire to awaken remains, and it does eventually awaken. And then if we are back to this material existence. So all these aspirations are there, and the sages, pure devotees, they know that even people come to spiritual life for material aspiration, relief from distress, for some economic reasons, or some sort of personal development, etc., and for some inquisitiveness. Very, very rare that a person comes specifically for spiritual emancipation. So you'll see in the scripture there is like a different types of benedictions that attract people to get into scriptures or to study or try to get some benefit from it. So like in this false stuti, the different material benedictions are mentioned. By hearing and chanting the names, activities, and glories of Maharaj Bharat, so it is motivating, certain parts, and ourselves as aspiring devotees. There is always still a various kind of mixture of aspirations. A lot of people come in age of Kali to Krishna consciousness due to some suffering that we go through. So there is those various benedictions, and it can motivate us at least, for the time being until we become more pure and purified, that there is a material benediction that's gonna come. So with this extending duration of life, and you can see devotees, they live longer and healthier, no doubt. Sometimes they look very timeless as well. You look at devotee, you don't know, how old are they. Devotees, they got this baby face. So these are the side benefits. But for some people, it can be motivating for a while. I become, vegetarian. I dance 4 a.m. in the morning. Some are kind of healthy and bright-faced. You see devotees in their 70s dancing like little boys and girls. That's very, very attractive. So it's all like a side benefits. And you think, what it's gonna be like if I become a devotee, what is my life gonna be when I'm 70? And I can give, we can start by practicing Krishna consciousness, we can start seeing past, present, and future. And I can see all of you in your 70s and 80s dancing in ecstasy in Kirtan. John is already doing that. He's in his 60s. He's jumping like a young lad. Most of people, they really struggle, in 60s, 70s to get motivated. Of course, there is now various clubs that bring the people together, but sometimes it does look a little bit pathetic. But when you see a devotee dancing in ecstasy in their 70s, it doesn't look pathetic at all. It looks totally ecstatic and blissful. And even if they can't move at that time, they're dancing in the heart very nicely. Shishikoldani Taimaya Purusha Shiki. Jai. So, and also reputation. I believe in Chaitanya Chaitamrita, the greatest reputation become known as devotee of the Lord. All other reputation just comes and goes. In Glasgow, in the George Square, there is many statues. The great people of this material world, some kings and leaders and generals, horses and etc. Now many centuries after their existence, often just some pigeons land on their heads and they do whatever they do. Of course, it's not to disrespect, some things that they did, but all those names just become, they did this and that war, and when the philosophical shift happens in material world, some of those statues get thrown into the river, just like it happened, in the summertime. Some of the so-called great leaders of the world, when the world view has changed, some of them, supported slavery and all sorts of things like that. Then when the things shift, then people get totally fed up and throw those statues into the river. So whatever was the fame at one point, it gets completely disrespected when things change. So some of those so-called great leaders then become completely dishonored in due course of time. This is material reputation, but becoming a great devotee of the Lord. As you look into Srimad Bhagavatam, some of the histories of the great devotees, we read thousands and thousands of years later, and even millions of years later, the glory of devotee Maharaj Bharat, his glories remain glorified many thousands of years later and inspires us. And Srimad Bhagavatam is full of eternal glory of the Lord's devotees. They get glorified Kali Yuga after Kali Yuga, Divya Yuga after Divya Yuga. So when things go into forgetfulness at the end of certain periods of existence, Kali Yuga and etc., everything becomes covered. When the next Divya Yuga comes, again great sages come and they recite Srimad Bhagavatam, the same glorious or the same wonderful devotees that comes in time memorial again and again and again. And for each Divya Yuga, some of devotees, even same devotees come, and their glories are eternal and wonderful. And we hear those glories more in recent times with Lord Chaitanya's appearance, performed such a wonderful activities and have such an impact that no general, no leader of the material world can achieve anything like it. They can inspire people's minds and hearts for the time being with something. And we can see even, some great leaders in the modern world, they come and say something and gather a lot of followers. and then the very next generation just completely throw and contaminate all those beautiful aspirations, and this becomes like, scientists, some wonderful invention happens that's gonna transform the world and make everything beautiful and nice, and then it goes into the hands of the whoever businessman, and just make millions of profit out of it, and all the beautiful aspirations are gone and dispersed into non-existence. So these are a situation in material world, but the glories of the Lord's devotees are just so wonderful. It has this eternal essence, and the beauty and the purity of devotees' activities are so wonderful. It purifies and inspires our hearts and minds. And when the same principles manifest as well in a modern day, it also have this wonderful effect when we see very advanced Bhagavad devotee performing the activities, and we hear about them, like we're reading about Srila Prabhupada and his life every day. So we read a book Bhagavatam and we hear about person Bhagavatam. And we see how they act in a pure devotion, with pure love, and how they manifest that devotion. It inspires and purifies our hearts and inspires us as well to go for the same goal. Like Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted a kingdom that was greater than Lord Brahma. But when he found Krishna, he said, "I found the most valuable jewel, and I was just looking for the broken piece of glass." So this worldly reputation, this fortune, and this so-called long existence of life, long duration of life, and just in a sense gratification that you extend this life, and in the next life, who knows who we're gonna become by living this animalistic life. So all this, it doesn't have this material fame and all those things. They have no value, and this is what this chapter is trying to destroy in us, because we're so attached and so hopeful that this material world is gonna give us some relief and the pleasure and happiness, and we become so attached to those aspirations that we can't see anything beyond it. So sometimes we need to get a really kind of good telling and shake us and wake us wake us up from this illusion that we can be materially happy. And it's not so easy to hear some of the things if you're finding it difficult certain aspects, and you feel a little bit of pain in the heart and you hear it, then it's a sign that there is some material attachment there. And sometimes we need to kind of work through those things and not to get discouraged, and be kind of realistic and think, okay, this is gonna take some time. And also, when we read these things, also we should understand that what is being destroyed is the material conception. And this I was reading this yesterday, that there is a verse that the very same thing that causes the disease, if it's applied in a therapeutic way, it can cure the very thing. So you can read so many destruction, like a family members, like a jackals and tigers. Does it sound very inspiring, but it does happen. Like, sometimes just the family members are waiting, for a father, or mother to die, that they can squander, and sell their property and make a fortune. And been struggling, as we read, this desire, deep rooted in the heart, I need, better iPhone or better car or a better house or etc. And there may be some affection, with no doubt, the spirit soul, being affectionate by nature, it manifests that affection, here for the other living entities in the material world. and that is completely illusory. There is that affection that manifests to other living entity, but it's so mixed, and those other desires, at one point are there, and on other point it may just get completely distinguished. It's not that in every single case, that there's a jackal and tiger. Sometimes there isn't, when people are very pious and purified. Sometimes it makes us wonder, how this can be true. But as we spoke before, there is this tendency to degrade things. Things can happen like that, at one point it looks like everything is very nice, but when there is opportunity to become rich or famous, you see in the world it does happen that people give up their values just to get some profit and money or some reputation, some fame, and they it happens at the expense of the people who are dear to them, this material world. So it does definitely happen. So yeah, it can become, the family members can become, or sometimes you work so hard, and if the culture in the family is just all about what they, and that is the nature of Kali Yuga, just get what you can, then what is the next object, and you work so hard, and then you come back, and just you got this big list of demands, I need a new iPhone, I need a new car, I need a new dress, I need a new shoes, I need a new jacket, all this big list. And because of affection, yes, of course, and then, but if a person that you don't know comes with the same list, who do you think you are, just get out of here, and or takes your money away to buy these things, then we call police. I just been robbed. And you come back after working a month with £1,000 and it gets stolen, we phone police. But if the £1,000 is taken away by your relative to spend on a new iPhone, then this is wonderful. This is love. I haven't been robbed, because it may sound a little bit heavy, but if you really analyze it in a detached way, there is definitely some truth, some truth in these things, and that's why you see, some people just totally broken down around the Christmas time, when these expectations of various material objects, when people demand, and like barely there is any time for the real thing that people has entered family life, for some affection and for some loving exchange and for some deep, loving relationship between mother and father, daughter and mother, and all those, different relationships exist. Everybody's in their room watching TV or computer or Facebook. You see those nowadays, cynical, kind of clips of, five family members at the lunchtime. Everybody's looking at their phone, kind of thing. It's not completely phantasmagorical, It's again. So when you see that kind of clip, we laugh and etc. because there is some truth. But when we read in the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam about jackals and tigers, it kind of disturbs us. This is, some fanatical, fundamental religious, idea that is trying to destroy the world. But actually, you can see people notice those tendencies, and they produce, some clips on the Facebook, and you kind of look at them and think, yeah, this is true. You read Srimad Bhagavatam, you think this is, too much. This is too much to handle. So this is all the signs of unpurified heart, and it's definitely going to happen if it's influenced by mode of ignorance. It's just almost 100% that it's going to happen. And if it's influenced by mode of passion, then there will be some business type of exchange, when I do this for you, you do this for me. And if there is some goodness there, it may not be there at all. So that's why you see, this, you see some examples that these are not it's not like that, you know. But the point of the scripture is to point out, you know, what's going to happen if you go to mode of ignorance and passion. And also in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that there is always competition. So you maybe now everything you're completely in a mode of goodness, but you know, if you know a big opportunity for profit just pops in into our, you know, okay, this is loving a relationship with your family, and this is £1 million, you know. So it's like, and you're gonna get so many desires get fulfilled, you know, of traveling around the world and whatever. And here is, you know, I hated a little bit this person, you know, at times I hate the way they do things. And so it's like the temptation, what you're gonna choose. And as soon as you choose a wrong thing, the seed is planted. This is the nature of material existence. As soon as you've been just fantastic, wonderful person, everybody thought, you know, you're a really nice guy, you're a really nice girl, you're so honest, and etc. As soon as you slip once, you planted that seed, and you know there's another opportunity comes, and you again, you know, then because you did it once, is something tapping you on the shoulder again. That temptation is starting to drag. So you've just been in a mode of goodness. Everything has been wonderful, and you see again so many, you know, examples in the scripture, like Ajamil, who was just gentle, wonderful soul. He had a wonderful family. He was collecting the flowers for the deities every day. He had a beautiful angelic wife. But then you saw, you know, two people kind of kissing and doing some sort of, you know, not very sattvic kind of activity in the public, and just something awakened in the heart, you know, that desire just flooded, as we read, you know, a whirlwind, you know, this lust, this material desire can be just like a whirlwind, and what happens with a whirlwind, it raises a lot of dust, and you can't see, it's pitch black. Anybody seen whirlwind? Have you seen whirlwind in the movie? On TV? It becomes pitch black actually when the sun gets covered, and that kind of thing. It's just dark, and it happened as well in Krishna Lila. Was whirlwind demon Trinavarta came and covered everything in darkness. Nobody could see where is Krishna, and he picked up Krishna and took him to the sky. And Mother Yashoda just started to cry, you know, and shed tears because everything got covered and you couldn't see anything. So this whirlwind actually represents this argumentative mentality of materialistic people, that they fight and argue over things. That's also can be whirlwind. It covers your vision, and the whirlwind of sex life and sex desire also covers you. And sometimes people think, you know, what is wrong is about the sex life, you know, it's not so bad, you know, it's etc. But because it puts you so much on the material platform, the attachment that forms from it is so deep rooted and so strong, that it's actually, and puts you on this bodily platform that I am this body, and this body is a source of ultimate source of pleasure. So it brings you to that level that you just can't rise to anything higher. You can't really rise. You become so covered and caught up in it that, you know, the spirituality remains or genuine spirituality, because some people, they do it in the name of spirituality, you know. There's tantric ideas, you know, of like sexual spirituality, which is just another, you know, type of pseudo ideas, pseudo swamis, yogis, incarnations that doesn't really give you a relief. It just keeps you in illusion that I'm not becoming spiritual, but I'm still enjoying the sex life. It's completely bodily concept of life. There's nothing spiritual there. And in order to rise, you know, to spirituality, you have to rise above the bodily platform and rise above the illusion that this body can give you any ultimate happiness or any lasting happiness. And when we do experience, the happiness from Krishna consciousness, all these things become insignificant, a small thing. Of course, the emotional needs, it can be there, and but there is marriage there. And so, yeah, coming back to this point of the therapeutic thing, so the very same thing that is completely condemned in the scripture as, jackals, tigers, creepers, and all sorts of things, the very, very same thing when it's applied in a therapeutic way, in a conscious way, this very same thing can be the source of your elevation, the enlightenment, and purification. So the materialistic marriage life is absolutely, totally condemned and destroyed in this chapter. But when it's done in a therapeutic way, in a Krishna conscious way, then it's a source of liberation. And so many other things that are mentioned that is being destroyed, etc. Like speaking about the fame that you spoke. If you want to be famous, become a good devotee. Your fame will go far and wide. And if you are not, experiencing, in the beginning stages so much this emotional connection with Krishna, and then you can find it in a family life, Krishna conscious family life, and you have those relationships. And if you bring up your family in the Krishna conscious ways, then maybe your family members won't be like jackals and tigers that just take away, your hard-earned money, and you're so happy about it. Or maybe if it does happen, maybe that's something that is going to inspire some renunciation in you, that, at some point of your life, you just say, okay, I'm just going to do, 100% to Krishna, together with a partner or on my own, whichever the situation may be. So are there any quick questions or comments on this points? Anybody felt a pain in this chapter when you went through? Yes.
One thing I was thinking is it's really nice because even if somebody isn't aiming for purity, by reading this, it's elaborated in the purport as well.
Yes.
It presents something attractive, whatever happens to that. So, because it speaks about how all of your desires, you can merge, and that's the desire of jnani's. And it's like really all inclusive. It's not saying like this isn't good enough. It's saying if this is your desire, it's possible. But then it's kind of like leaving that space for if there's a higher attraction. It's really nice.
Yes, it is encouraging. As we went to this chapter, it can be quite heavy, quite a few things, but we can grin and bear it because we read about there is some benediction. All my desires will become fulfilled, material and spiritual desires. So let me, keep hearing this, even if it's painful at the moment. Some things painful to hear, but this benediction is there by great sages, and it definitely happens. And I mean, it's even written in some other scriptures that giving a donation to a saintly person, that there is no greater karmic reaction actually to give a donation to a saintly person in terms of how it's gonna come back to you. And some people, that is their motivation, get some reputation and get something back in return, and etc. And sometimes you see those multi-billionaires. It doesn't come from the sky, it means that they've been very charitable people actually, to become this multi-billionaire in this life. It means been extremely charitable people. But the great fortune, some of those people that they give money to may be devotees. And this is how everything starts, for them.
Yeah, I was thinking actually that she's probably linked something about the 125th anniversary.
Oh, yes.
At the bottom, it's saying mates altars. I was thinking, it's really nice because even if somebody has this motivation, they want to be seen as, they love to be acknowledged or whatever, it's, even if it's like some Agata Supati, there's still, you know, there's still a place for it, like to spiritualize it. It's really lovely, and I'm very grateful for the way that you explained this, because it kind of confused me originally, like, because I remember at the beginning when I went to Krishna consciousness, Brian would talk about boons a lot. You get a great boon from this, and I was just like, yeah, but I don't know. I was perceiving it as materialistic, like I want this, so therefore I'll do that. So the way you sort of elaborated it is really nice.
Yeah, it's a kind of
For us. And, true. And I mean, most of us, you know, with the real exceptions, come for some benediction, for personal motivated benediction, and you know, better life, healthier life, longer life, more bright faced, and all that kind of things. But because of that motivation, it keeps us in association with devotees, and we're hearing all this, you know, hearing and chanting of glories of the Lord and His devotees, and slowly but surely, then the genuine desire awakens for being truly Krishna conscious. You know, we raise to this platform of being, of just looking for Krishna eventually, which is considered very, very dear to Krishna. Krishna says, out of those four people, the one who is looking for me is the best and very, very dear to me. And, you know, we can rise to that platform if you just stick and continue. In the meantime, you know, there may be some other motivations that keeps us, but by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, eventually that diminishes, and the genuine greed for Krishna awakens. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande.